Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I'm the founder of Food Truck Training Group on Facebook, co-owner with my beautiful wife, Melissa, of our own food truck. It's called Food Truck 101, and I'm the executive director of the National Street Food Vendors Association, which is a nonprofit dedicated to education, advocacy, and uplifting all food vendors. Today, we're starting the road to 600 episodes. We need just a handful more by the end of the year, and the podcast will have its 600th episode. So I thought I would do something a little different for the next 18 episodes and talk about subjects that I have not talked about in the past. You would think having over 500 episodes that I would have talked about everything. So I asked AI to go through all of my podcasts and give me some topics that I've not discussed before. We have 18 coming up. Before we get into that, I want to thank Table Needs for sponsoring this episode of the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. Table Needs is a full-service POS system capable of handling your busy food truck, cash, credit card, and reporting needs. For more information about Table Needs, check out the link in the description. All right, so topic number 1 on our countdown to 600 episodes. We're going to talk about sustainability. Now, in certain parts of the country, sustainability is forced upon you by your local government. They'll have rules and regulations in place that require you to maybe not use plastics, not use single-service items, or not to use styrofoam or any other item that's going to end up in a landfill. So we're going to talk about sustainability practices, and it goes beyond just your packaging. So one of the things that I mentioned that a lot of governments in some states are requiring is to reduce the single-use plastics. And what that means is you're thinking about knives and forks, straws, and containers. We use them once, they end up in the trash, and then of course the trash ends up in a landfill somewhere. So what you want to do is switch to compostable or biodegradable utensils. Now they are a little bit more expensive, but people don't mind paying a little bit more knowing that they are helping the environment. Again, certain areas this is a big deal. Other parts of the country, styrofoam it is. But you got to be able to play to the guests that are in your area that are most likely to come to your food truck. And then, of course, if it's a law in your area, then you are stuck having to do that. So as far as compostable or biodegradable utensils, bamboo works very well. It's actually very attractive. Bamboo grows really quickly, so being able to keep up with production is not a big deal. And, of course, it does degrade fairly quickly. Cornstarch is another thing that they're using to make some bowls I've seen made out of cornstarch. I've actually seen some utensils that were made out of cornstarch. And again, that biodegrades relatively quickly. You want to also implement waste management within your own food truck. Now, I'm not just talking about trash. You want to think about things that you use on your food truck that could be compostable. And then you want to set up a compost bin where all the food scraps and organic waste would be discarded. Of course, you want to count the waste before it ends up in that compostable bin, but the idea is that you are going to use the food items and organic waste. You can add it to your own garden at home, or if there's a community garden, you can take it and add it to those compost piles. You want to recycle what you can, so think about the cardboard boxes that you unpack when you have a distributor drop off your food. When you go shopping at Sam's Club, you may put it in boxes to get it out into your vehicle. How are you going to recycle those? Think about cans if you do cans or bottles of drinks. Have a recycle bin right outside your food truck so that people can discard those items and help the recycling process. You want to educate your staff. Make sure they understand what proper waste segregation means, not only to your business, but what it means to the area that you're in and the environment. So you got to spend a little bit of time doing some education. You want to source locally and you want to source seasonally. Now what that means is you want to support those local farmers. Purchase your produce and meats from the local suppliers. It not only ensures that you have fresher ingredients, it also supports your local economy, and then you have the opportunity now to create seasonal menus. What that does is it helps battle menu fatigue. People get tired of eating the same old thing over and over and over, and that's why they end up quitting your business. It has nothing to do with your food. It has to do with you don't have different things for them to choose from. Now remember, I want you to have a small menu, but you can have limited time onlys that change with the seasons. Typically, a seasonal product is going to be cheaper and less expensive because it requires less energy to grow it because it's grown locally, and certainly there's no transportation because, again, you're buying it locally. You want to also think about energy efficiency. It's not always about compost and not using styrofoam. When it comes to energy efficiency, you want to use those energy efficient appliances. Anything that has a good Energy Star rating. because that's going to help you reduce the consumption on your generator, or if you're hooked up to shore power, it'll help reduce that as well. You want to use LED lighting. So if you don't currently have LED lighting, you might want to think about switching. What I'll tell you about LED lighting is it reduces your frequency of light bulb changes. We used to have in ours the fluorescence, and we used to have the typical lights that you would use in a automobile, so the little tail light bulbs, those kind of things, because they run off of battery power very easily and they're quite bright. The problem is they burn out super quick. LEDs, on the other hand, last, it seems like, forever. We changed to LEDs in 2019 or 2020, I can't remember, and I've yet to change out one of those bulbs. So I've gone 4 years without a bulb change. That's pretty cool. You also want to think about renewable energy. There are some states, and I'm looking at you, California, that are going to mandate not using small engines, which guess what your generator is? A small engine. They want to get you off of using anything that's petroleum powered. So that's going to force you into alternative sources for energy like solar panels. You need to check those out because the technology is getting less and less expensive every year, and they're able to power more and more things. Now, is it where it needs to be? No, not even close. Now, we talked about utensils being eco-friendly, but let's also talk about just packaging in general. You want to be minimalistic with your packaging. Use as few pieces of packaging as possible. And of course, you want to opt for the eco-friendly things, especially things going to be recyclable or biodegradable. And then, of course, there's a branding opportunity. When you use sustainable packaging, it's telling an eco-friendly story about your business. And again, for some areas, that is a big deal. Other areas, they're not going to care. So you need to understand what your guest is looking for in your area and then appeal to those searches that they have. Some people will go to a food truck simply because it says it's eco-friendly. And then they're going to talk to you about that because it's important to them. Are there enough people that are going to care in your area that you need to advertise that? And if there are, it becomes a brand story about your business. Now, there's also other things you can think about, like water conservation. Now, we know all about water conservation on a food truck because we have only so many gallons of water that we can use to wash dishes, wash our hands. But you can help yourself out by getting a low flow faucet, which automatically makes you saving water because it ups the pressure without upping the amount of water coming through the line. You also want to do regular maintenance. Pay attention to those faucets. Are they dripping? Are they not dripping? What about your connection when you go to fill up those tanks? Are there drips there? Look at all your plumbing throughout the entire build. It may have only an occasional leak, but still a leak is wasteful. So stay on top of the maintenance. And then things that had to be cleaned that have filters or might have a line deposit buildup, you want to keep those clean, because that helps the flow of the equipment and makes it operate more efficiently. You want to engage and educate your guests. You can see your guests becoming your biggest advocates. And you want to display your commitment. You want to put it on social media. You want to talk about it at community events. So here's a wrap up. Let's just talk about the things that you want to check into. You want to reduce those single-use plastics by switching to something that's biodegradable. You want to implement waste management on your food truck, and you want to do that just to make sure you're profitable, but then you also want to have composting and recycling. You want to source locally grown or produced ingredients and then adjust your menu seasonally to match those seasonal products. Invest in energy efficient appliances and then consider renewable energy sources. It doesn't have to completely power your food truck, but if it helps to power it a little bit, there are savings to be gained. Use eco-friendly packaging and then reduce the amount of packaging that you're producing. And then turn that into a branding opportunity. Conserve water as much as possible. Just make sure that your fixtures are efficient and that you're making a part of your maintenance checklist to be looking for those water leaks and replacing washers and tightening fixtures as needed. Engage with your guests so that they understand your sustainability journey and maybe you can bring them along with you. So thank you guys so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. If you're enjoying what we do, please consider subscribing. And if you really love what we do, show some support. There's going to be a link in the description to make that happen. Until next time, you guys have a profitable week.